So there's this video of one of our Afro Latina sisters going to speak about her experiences in Mexico, but it's not just Mexico. This conversation is more so about Latin America in itself. Now, we know Latin America was colonized, by the Spanish. It was colonized by the Portuguese. Some places in South America, you had the British, things like that. But there was a lot of African slaves that was brought all the way, down from Mexico all through. Black people were spread everywhere. Now, this sister here, of course, this is her opinion. Last time we spoke about the other, Mexican brother, actually, he talked about, the racism that, or, hey, stay away from black people in the homes. And some people, especially on Facebook, got any feelings about what he said, because he said it. It didn't come from my mouth. But my questions was at the time, well, like, what we do? And that was a question. Of course, some of you who knew, who came to our Facebook page, that you just got, I knew exactly when you stopped listening to the video. I've been doing this for too long to know when you stopped listening, because you didn't hear nothing I said at all. You just got to the point. You didn't like what he said. You didn't like my line of questioning. And that was the end of it for you, right? So if you are new, coming and asking questions, at least of me, make sure you do it as an adult, no name calling, etc. Because if you do, you get yourself blocked and banned. That's the way I work. Now, let's listen to this sister about her experiences being a Afro Latina in Mexico. Let's roll that.
Let's get into it. I think this is a conversation we should be having more often. I start discussing race in Mexico, and everybody wants to come for me because this is what they're saying. Race is not to be addressed in Latin American countries. Addressing of race is only a USA thing. No, it's not a US thing, because guess what? Racism is not just a US thing. Oppression is not just a US thing. Colorism and classism is not just a US thing. And yes, in our country, in Mexico, we experience lots of classism and colorism. And guess what comes hand in hand with that? Racism. And guys, there's a huge resistance to the shit I'm bringing up here, which is crazy to me how people don't realize that it's low-key racist what they're telling me. To not bring up blackness in Mexico. What the hell? Most Mexicans are racist and they don't even fucking know it. If you've never experienced racist energy with Mexicans, it's because you're good. You're privileged. And you don't get to say it doesn't exist because you haven't experienced it. You haven't experienced racist energy amongst your own people? Consider yourself lucky. I have light skin privilege amongst my own people, but because of that, I've been able to pick up on some crazy racist shit white Mexicans be saying right in front of me without truly knowing my background. This whole mejorando la raza shit is one of them. Basically what this means is, let's better the race. We need to better the race rather than ruin it. Mexicans be saying this shit for real, out in the open. If you're white and you bring in home a moreno or a dark-skinned person, there's gonna be a conversation that your family's gonna have with you. There's gonna be resistance to that. It's real. This is real life. I've personally dealt with this in relationships with other Mexicans, literally. Telling me shit like, oh, we need to fix your hair, my curly hair. Oh, estás morena. Like, not in a good way, because being morena, I'm fucking proud of it. But the way these people say it, just like in the US, in Mexican households, here and in Mexico, wherever, a black person walks in the room, the energy is about to shift. This is all based off personal experience, yo. My father is a black man. I've literally heard Mexicans talking shit about him beside me because they thought he didn't speak Spanish. Check your people.
That is her experience, but we want to build on her experience. Now, she talked about her dad is black. Her mom is a dark-skinned, indigenous-looking woman. I actually saw that on her TikTok page.
So here's a picture of my parents. So as you can see, my father is a dark-skinned black man from Mexico. My mother's family is from Yucatan, Quintana Roo, so it's more like that indigenous side. Most people from Quintana Roo or in that area are Mayan. My father's family is from Oaxaca, that's located in the south of Mexico and the coast. So a lot of us, we talk about Afro Mexicans, being Afro Mexican. That's how we identify. But when I came here to the US, this was just such a rare thing. Even today, people are like, what? Because people have this idea of Mexicans that, being Mexican is a race and that, we wear sombreros and eat burritos. So I don't look like a typical Mexican. We don't look like typical Mexicans, so people don't believe that we're Mexican, I guess.
You have to think about the Afro, Latinos or Afro Mexicans. They've been in the country for 500 years, literally. And just a few years ago, they was just recognized on the census. All this time they've been there, and they've been staying, of course, in their areas like, I think they said Veracruz, is it Osaka? Y'all know those, names. I'm saying it wrong. They've been there like forever, right? Now you got to think about it. There are pivotal figures in Mexican history that help get the Spanish off of Mexico's back. You got to think about one brother who was, half indigenous, half African, Jose Maria Morelos. Now he became a military leader. He helped, fight against the Spanish, beat they behind about 22 different times in battle. And he is one of the heroes, in Mexico. He was eventually captured and then he was, killed. Then you got to think about Vicente Guerrero, one of the presidents, the second president of Mexico. He was the brother that ended slavery in Mexico in 1810. He was also a military leader as well. Even when they talk about Cinco de Mayo and all of that, there was a lot of black folks that fought and helped get the Spanish off of Mexico's back. Now, when Vicente Guerrero had ended slavery in 1810, it was a free, country. This is why you had some of my ancestors who left America that escaped slavery from Texas, and then they would go into Mexico because it was a free country. And then when the slave masters tried to go and retrieve these black people, the Mexican army would run they behind right back out of there to go behind back to Texas with that. A lot of black folks joined the Mexican army. A lot of people, you talk about brothers like Gaspar Yanga. It's many people that made pivotal, marks in Mexican history. Black people is solidified in Latin America. They are just as Latino as anyone else. Whether that person's white or they say mestizo looking, etc. They are just as Latino, they're just as Mexican, they're just as Colombian, but they don't want to talk about the anti-black racism in Latin America. You think about all these black people, one of the most populous countries like Brazil, it has more black people in that country actually than America has black people. And yet they've never had a black president. And they're treated horribly in Brazil, horribly. And even Minister Farrakhan talked about how you have a lot of black people in Latin America, yet white folks are running it. No black people at all. Colombia has just elected their first vice president-elect, Francia Marquez. Just elected her. And they made history. After all these years that Colombia's been in existence, this is the first time ever that you have a black person get up to the vice presidency. Now, we're not talking about America, but the thing is, when you have people that's running around, as this sister was saying, don't talk about race. Don't talk about racism. That's not what we talk about. Oh, why you bringing it up? That's no different than the white supremacists in America talking about critical race theory. Don't talk about the history of America. The history of America is dark. The history of America is very, very evil. Slavery did happen here in America. It did. And this country was built on slavery. The infrastructure of America was built on slavery. They got their wealth through slavery, and black Americans helped innovate this country, period. In any room you're sitting in, I can point to something right now that a black American helped innovate. All the lights I got on in here, you wouldn't have no lights. It wouldn't have been for the brother Lewis Latimer, who created the carbon filament of the light bulb. Without the carbon filament, the light bulb would have been a piece of glass, because Thomas Edison, he couldn't figure out how to keep it on. We talk about the open heart surgery. We talk about, the traffic light. There's so many different things that we have done to innovate America. So they don't even want that talked about. So same thing in Latin America. There's a lot of brothers and sisters that help innovate in Latin America. And when y'all talk about, well, why don't we, why are we talking about this? We need to be coming together. You can't come together unless you get rid of the anti-black racism. You can't say, don't talk about that, but yet practicing that, because not talking about it is not getting rid of it. There's a lot of my Afro-Latino brothers and sisters in Latin America who have no voice, who have no representation at all. They're not seen on TV. They're not seen in the novellas and all of that. Y'all not putting them on the news networks like talking about. Not like you have the white looking ones with blue eyes and green eyes. Come on, y'all know this. And many of you have sent me messages about this actually. And shout out to y'all, especially on Facebook. Many of you sent me messages about that and agreed to this stuff is going on and needs to end. It's going to take the younger people, like the same thing I say about in the African continent. It's going to take the younger people in Latin America, whether you're in Mexico, Colombia, Panama, wherever you located, right? It's going to take the young people to end this. Because, unfortunately, sometimes the older people keep things going. Well, the older people, you're going to have to kind of let them do their thing. But you kind of put yourself in a position in a globalized world to say, oh, don't fool with them black people, because you're going to deal with black people. Just like somebody could say, oh, well, don't fool with an Asian person, don't fool with an Arab person. We live in a globalized society. You're going to have to deal with a whole lot of people, period. Now, previous video, like I said, and I mean that, it don't matter who it is, even a black person. If you are not rocking with us, we're not going to rock with you, period. That goes to my own community. Nobody's exempt to that conversation, because we don't need people that's against us like that. But for the people in the back of the room, because the people in the back of the room didn't listen in the last video, and I'll repeat it again, no matter who you are, where you come from, if you rock with us and you about, what we talking about, man, we rock with you, period. As individuals, yes, we'll do that. But you got to address the anti-black racism in Latin America. Now, we don't want to put it all on Mexico, because I've heard Puerto Ricans tell me that certain things go down like that in Puerto Rico. They got black people in Puerto Rico. I mean, I've heard about that in Colombia. I've heard about that everywhere, especially Brazil. So we don't want to just target Mexico. But what I'm saying is anti-black racism needs to be called out by Afro-Latinos in those countries. It needs to be spoken out about representation. They need to be on TV. They need to be in the movies. They need to be on the news. They need to be everywhere. Representation definitely matters. And Afro-Latinos in Latin America have not had the proper representation. See, Black America, we have fought for those things. We're not putting up with people treating us any kind of way. And sometimes people can't stand us because we will not allow people to treat us any kind of way. And we want our brothers and sisters in Latin America to stand up and say, no, y'all not going to treat us like that no more. You're not going to throw us in a corner and have us poor and destitute, no representation. We're not, thought about or anything. No. You need to have the same movements that we have in America. You know how I feel. I want to work with black people worldwide, period. But it makes no sense to keep up racism, white supremacy. You have to understand that color thing came from that Spaniard. That's where it come from. And that man from Portugal, which are Europeans, both of them. The indigenous peoples of America, Africans, wasn't even having those problems until they showed up and brought they mess over here, which was very, very evil. And unfortunately, even after the Spanish white supremacists is out of there and the Portuguese white supremacists is out of those countries, you still have that thought process there. It's not getting you anywhere. Unification gets you where you need to be. Even the white supremacists understand I got to work with other people. He even understands that. Fighting each other, all it do is leave us poor. It leave us destitute. And sure, I got some of your messages. You say, well, we should be working together and this and the third. Well, I told you before, you can't work together if you're not willing to address the anti-black racism. How could you work together? You can't until you address it until you deal with it, expose it for what it is. We need, like I say, the other brother that made the video that we covered, and this sister here that made the video. People like them is addressing the issue and problem. They're trying to uproot the problem, but they're being attacked by saying you don't supposed to be discussing this. Why are you talking about our mess? Why are you putting it out on Front Street? It needs to be put out on Front Street. Anyone that has those thought processes need to be put out on Front Street. That's not acceptable. It's not. And if you feel that way, especially if you're in America, the big melting pot, I don't think you should be here feeling like that. You can go back to your homeland if you feel that way. That's how I feel about it. Go for anybody. I'll say the same thing to the white supremacists too. You don't like black folks, you don't like Hispanics, you don't like Asians, you don't like, well, carry your happy self back to Europe. I said the same thing to them too. People who don't know me, you really don't know how I talk. You need to go ahead and watch my videos. I'm very, very equal opportunity when I speak about issues when it comes to racism, white supremacy, or just people putting, their differences aside, working together, etc. Because yes, I also understand what some of you saying. It would make more sense to work together, but hey, Black America has always wanted to work with everybody. We have stood up for everybody. Our politicians were at the border when the kids was being put in cages, okay? But some of the big mouths that's on social media, they didn't go down there and defend those kids. We got the whole Congressional Black Caucus supposed to fight for black people, but they down there talking about, hey, we got to fight for these brown kids. So black people have always say, hey, black and brown, black and brown, black and brown. Well, in order for that to work, we got to have brown meet us in the middle. Now, I'm not saying some didn't meet us in history. I'm not talking about like the Brown Panthers or, people like that, that understood certain things. I'm not talking about them. But I'm saying that if you want to have a true coalition, then you have to, meet at the middle. Just like America, when they got allies, they have to meet each other in the middle. If you're not going to do that, then that's when you have the response. Like I say, well, if you don't want to work with us, well, do you, and then we do us, and then that's just the end of it. Because you can't keep operating like this. Because you can't keep also blaming the white supremacists about, oh, well, we was colonized. No, it's not about being colonized at this point. It's not. Slavery ended in Mexico at 1810. Well over 200, years ago, it ended. It should not be having these issues with the Afro Mexicans whatsoever. They deserve to have every opportunity like everybody else. I say end it. I definitely would like to, talk to all my brothers and sisters in these countries, in which that's what I plan on doing in the future, is to visit these brothers and sisters and get it directly from them, how they live and how things could be better. Because if you don't expose this stuff, this is how we got free. Because if you don't talk about it, if you don't expose it, if you don't put it on Front Street, you'll stay in the same position. And that's what I say to my Afro-Latino brothers and sisters. Talk about what's going on. Expose it. Shine a light on it. That's the only way it's going to stop. But y'all, let me know in the comments y'all think about, this particular sister here, given her experiences. But, we need more Afro-Latinos to stand up, to say something, to speak out. Because I've said this for years. Y'all have not had a voice. Y'all have not been on the forefront. No, not Black America have, but y'all have not been on the forefront of anything. And I've even said, I'm definitely looking for a Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina to come in and speak on those issues in Latin America, because I can't articulate it like that, but y'all can. So if you are a person like that, that's, very charismatic in your speech, and you want to really dive into that, we'll love to have you over here.